I got to listen to a phenomenal leader yesterday. She sat down with us. And she said something very profound, and I hope it's okay that I say it out loud, because I don't know. But she made this statement to us. She said, sometimes when you're holding the gate open for others, you don't always get to go through, and you still can't shut the gate.
You know, they're dueling parts of my personality, right? Like, I love gay rights and I love country music. Like, they're not, like, incompatible with each other, but stereotypically people think that those two things cannot coexist, or that, you know, the cultural significance of being a rural person can't be compatible with being a progressive, when I think there's nothing more rural than being a progressive who believes in you know, economic populism and standing up for the rights of people who are getting, you know, stepped on by elitists and people who don't care if they thrive or you know, are able to live in peace with their families.
We care about exactly the same things as do urban people, having to do with kitchen table issues in our homes. But sometimes we talk about them different. So what's important is that when we talk to rural voters or urban voters, that we sort of match up in their culture and how they explain things and think about things.
No one's coming to save us. And so we need to empower ourselves, and we need to empower our community members. And that means that we, as a Democratic Party, because we're the county party, it's still a dirty word for some. So we really need to consider what the vehicle is and do more issues-based organizing and advocacy, and then bring people on board that way. So we're going to be exploring that in 2023.
You know, one thing that I saw in Ohio was the Ohio Democratic Party and outside groups really focused on just the 3 C's, Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. And that really wasn't enough to win statewide. And I saw that rural communities were just being neglected, and, you know, just really harmful stereotypes were sort of predominating strategists, you know, perceptions of them. And so, you know, when the opportunity came to work with rural organizing, I just was so excited to jump for it, to be able to talk about and with rural people about the issues that they care about most.
The number one lesson I saw from this cycle is that there is a cultural disconnect that did not surprise me, but it was really, you know, we ran a guy from the most rural county in the state, you know, a 4-star Admiral for U.S. Senate, and it just didn't matter. And Iowa contributes, you know, rural Iowa contributes, and rural America at large contributes a higher per capita share of veterans of the armed services than urban America, right? And it just didn't seem to matter. I mean, culturally, we ran a candidate who was a good fit for the state, but we just did not. Democrats just statewide have not communicated well, and we can't just blame the national trends either. You know, it's just, there's going to be a need for some reflection and so a need to become more culturally competent in rural Iowa as Democrats.
I never like the whole politics thing. When people say politics, I don't think that there is such a thing. I think it's people. It's people and it's policy, but it is not politics. And if we could stop saying those types of things and start talking about the people and the policy and the service. I agree with CJ and Barbara and Emily when we say we all want the same thing. Every single person wants to live and eat and take care of their babies and, you know, start their businesses and achieve their dreams and be healthy and happy. We all want that. We've just created this environment where somehow people are convinced that in order for everybody to have access to that opportunity, somebody else has to lose something, which is simply not true. And so that's what got me where I am now.
We locally are recognizing the work that needs to be done, and that's that really deep organizing. I think that the GOP was unabashedly racist in their attack ads against Mandela Barnes, but at the same time, folks are still trying to be like Midwest nice about stuff. And I think like locally we realize like we've got to have these conversations. We got to keep organizing, and we need to like call out both the overt and the more like subversive racism that exists, because it happens all the time. And they were feeding into the dog whistles and the tropes and all of that kind of stuff, which I think really cause people that we, like our own party, we have racist individuals in it and that are responding to those things and feeling intense emotions because of what they've seen or what they've heard. And I think we just need to call it what it is and organize so that we can, undo a lot of what still exists, in our small towns and our communities.
I have family members and neighbors who, gosh, you're a great guy, but I can never vote for you because you're a Democrat. And I asked them why, and they said, oh, well, because Democrats, they don't think they look down on us, or they look down on rural people. And then I talked to, people who are Democrats or involved in Democratic organizing in maybe more larger population centers, bluer districts as it may be, and they have the same kind of knee-jerk reaction against rural voters. And sometimes I worry that there's a knee-jerk response that, while they choose that for themselves and they refuse to see reasons, so we should just give up on them. But a lot of people are just victims of a system that has failed them, and they don't understand that. And I think it cuts both ways, right? So Democrats writ large, there are Democrats in urban areas in Iowa who are going to be hurt by the lack of rural investment by Democrats in rural Iowa. And there are Democrats in rural Iowa who are going to be seeing their public dollars go to private schools now because of decisions that are made in the state capitol, and the direct result of Democrats not necessarily investing our time wisely. And Iowa's a unique situation. We spend all of our time as a state party trying to convince Washington politicians to keep our caucus first in the nation rather than doing year-round organizing. So I think we're going to be in a position here very soon to do just that, and I think it's really exciting. It was a sad morning on November 9th, but it's November 10th now, and we got to get going again. We can't just sit and wait. I always say there's nothing you can't get or achieve if you don't work hard, unless you're a Republican in Western Iowa, right? So they don't work as hard as we do, and if we just keep outworking them, the bad guys can't win every time.
So what we did at RO this cycle, it was sort of a two-part plan. The first was we invested in local groups in 3 predominantly rural counties. And these local groups, some had been longstanding, some were newer. And we really went them through a really rigorous leadership development program that culminated in them doing what we call a local progress survey. So this would be paid canvassers going door to door, administering a 30-question long survey that was really asking, about every issue you can imagine, from access to clean water to, do you feel safe in your community? Do you feel like you can advance in your community? All sorts of things. It was really sort of like a throwback to the polling of old. And then we took those findings and we, had a really good data set. We actually had about 1,200 fully completed surveys. And we were really able to understand what those rural voters cared about. And so then when we shifted to doing our electoral program, we were able to have those conversations and say, what issue do you care about? And then based on that, we tied that back into, well, I see that you care about, the rising food costs or rising utility costs. Well, JD Vance doesn't really have a plan to address any of that. And, we just think you should be aware of this, and really not trying to push them, but just informing them about this. And they would say, oh, wow, that's really something. He doesn't have a plan for people like me. And we also tied in with, instead of those bread and butter issues, he's focused on tax cuts for billionaires and criminalizing women who have abortions. And that we just feel that's so out of touch with Ohio values. And that was really persuasive to people. We saw time after time, people who were undecided, on the fence, saying, wow, I really couldn't see myself voting for JD Vance after that. And we also did traditional door knocking, we did text messaging, we did calls, we had nationwide volunteers, rural activists calling into Ohio. We were really proud about that. We also did texting to people in small towns that had competitive congressional races, and we're happy to play a small part in helping flip one of the seats for Congress, Ohio's first district, which is Cincinnati and some rural areas in Warren County. So those were some of the things that we did this cycle.
My Rural America did 2 races in eastern Pennsylvania this time. One of them was Mick Cartwright, which is Pennsylvania 8, kind of up in the northeast corner of Pennsylvania, more or less. And another was Susan Wild. They both have significantly rural areas of their state, and Trump carried both of those districts in both elections. We looked at it again, how we could make issues personal to rural voters and what the record of Matt and Susan were. So with the help of certainly rural organizing, Massachusetts flips Pennsylvania, together we elect, and My Rural America, we all work together to do the messaging system.
You know, one of the things that I've really argued as a rural Democrat is there's been a strategy in a lot of states, and Iowa's no different, where Democrats think that they should just focus on the population centers. And, that's a statewide focus, which, understandably so, can work in some cases. However, what happens is you see these state legislative districts that end up becoming overwhelmingly red over several cycles because we don't focus on some of the rural organizing and shrinking those margins that we need to do.
I've been seeing that there is likely going to be a ballot initiative in Ohio for raising the minimum wage in 2024. And I think that if it's successful in getting on the ballot, could drive a lot of progressive turnout and really make a huge difference in the lives of rural Ohioans. So I'm really excited about those 2 things.
We simply must do these things for the country and for rural America, and connect rural and urban, because if we don't, we just all get weaker.
I think that the electorate that turned out and the people who we were talking to, there are a lot of folks that just need to be reminded of what's at stake and have the dots sometimes connected, because really paying attention to politics we're privileged in that we're able to organize around it, and a lot of folks are working too hard to be able to do this stuff. So I'm hopeful anyway that people are, they're like, I can't do much else, but I can turn out and I can vote. And I'm like, that's all we need from you. We got it from here. We just need you to vote. And it was really cool to be knocking on doors of folks that had never voted in a midterm before, and they're like, yeah, there's no way I'm not showing up on the 8th. So that was great.
We had 6 hospitals closed in 4 years. One of them just a few weeks ago. I was standing on their lawn, right, watching them peel the letters off. And, now you have a city the size of Atlanta with 1 level 1 trauma center, which is insane to me. The national media misses the people and the purpose of what we're doing. It is not about who can tell the story the fastest. It is not about who can get the most retweets and clicks and likes. It is literally about what is in the best interest of the people. And that is what journalism is supposed to be about. It's to tell the truth. Not to tell the fastest story to whoever and whatever says it, but to tell the truth. And in my personal opinion, they did not tell the truth about Stacey Abrams and about Georgia as a whole. When we talk about, one big thing they missed was this thing about voter suppression with early vote turnout. Let me tell you something, guys. We did something fantastic with early vote. Have you ever seen 2.5 million people turn out in the midterms for early vote? They did in Georgia. We did that, right? And they missed the fact that getting people to turn out doesn't mean that access to voting wasn't hindered. Those are 2 separate things, right? Because the people who have access are turning out in higher numbers doesn't mean there's not a whole other group of people that still don't have access. And they missed that. They just played a lot into the narratives. It was very divisive, and it was very frustrating when what you really want is what we all want, which is to be happy, whole, and healthy together. And so they missed that. They really missed it. And they missed the good places where we were. This idea that somehow we didn't go all these places, people just don't know. It's just not accurate.
What gives me hope is sorry, didn't expect that. I got a little misty-eyed there. What gives me hope is the rural people who told me that having a statewide candidate come to their community gave them hope. And so hope breeds hope, and success breeds success, right? So we have to always be willing to reach out and make people feel like they're not forgotten. And I feel like I did some of that this year. And I'm proud of that.